Good evening. I'd like to call this Concord Township Zoning Commission Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 to order. We have a number of items on the agenda today, but we are going to make a slight change in the agenda. We are going to move item number 2 on the agenda, which is the site plan review application number 047. We are going to move that ahead of the public hearing for the zoning text amendments at the request of the applicant. I have no problem doing that. We always try to accommodate these requests when we can, and in this case, I think that's a reasonable request. So we are going to move item number 2 up to number 1, and then we'll slide the public hearing for the zoning text amendments for the zoning resolution to the second item on the agenda. So, with that said, item number 2 on the agenda is the site plan review application number 047, submitted by HSB Architects and Engineers on behalf of the Auburn Vocational School District for a first responder outdoor training facility for the property located at 8159 Auburn Road. And I would like to invite the representative up. I would like you to state your name and address for the record, please, and then please tell us about the project. Do you need an easel or anything, or are you good to go?
I'm good.
Okay, all right, super. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andre Kawam with HSB Architect. We're located in Cleveland at 1250 Old River Road, down in the Flats.
Okay, thank you.
I really appreciate you guys allowing us to take us first on the agenda.
Sure.
I'd like to invite the civil engineer that's been involved in this project as I go with the presentation. I'm not sure how much you previously were privileged to see some of the plan that we're proposing for the Open Career Center on this site. But what we're looking at is an expansion for their first responder service that currently is in place, but we're expanding onto it to an adjacent site for their facilities. I'm just, go a little quick brief of what we're proposing on the site, so we could answer any question that you may have or earlier that you have looked at. Basically, it's currently a lot that has a house. We're keeping the house for the purpose of training and marking as a first responder to the site. We're adding 2 training facilities in the front of the yard of the house and in the back. We have dealt with Lake County Engineer Department on various issues. This plan has been going for at least 2 months in various changes and entertaining ideas, and we came up to this latest plan that you see in front of you. And what I mean by that is we had allowed to have the fire truck that would be part of the program of the training is to be able to maneuver around the site to accommodate the backing up to the house and for other various reasons too. That's really the biggest was challenge on the site, is to be able to move the driveway from where it's currently now and get a variance for that in order to accommodate the fire truck maneuver. I think basically that's in a nutshell really what's on the site.
Okay. Did you see the staff report?
Yes, we received the staff report and we reviewed that internally, me and the civil engineer. For the most part, we are complying with all the concerns that they had. Mainly there's a few redundancy or discrepancy between the civil and the architectural. I'll take the blame for that. But for the most part, everything is doable, everything is fine. We checked all the items that the Lake County had commented on, and we were glad to review that with them and, meet what they're asking for.
Now we have, under the staff recommendation, including conditions as appropriate, we have 13 items that have been specifically spelled out. And number 13 of the 13 items has A through G. I just want to make sure that is there anything on this list that you feel that you can't accommodate or that you aren't willing to do?
I believe Doug Courtney with Courtney Civil Engineer has been in contact with Lake County's engineer, and I believe we're up to date to what they want, and I can have Doug highlight on that.
Okay. Introduce yourself, name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Doug Courtney, the CW Courtney Company, 700 Beta Drive, Mayfield Village.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a microphone.
Oh, sorry.
It is a microphone, but
like
it's for audience, for TV, not for in
Okay.
air. So,
All right.
yeah,
Thank you.
there you go. Thank you.
Yes, I've since we got the staff report, I've reviewed these items with Lake County Stormwater and Stephen Hauser in their office, and we'll be able to accomplish everything they asked for there.
All right, well, just as a matter of record, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just review these conditions, okay, with you real quick. We'll try to go, it's a fairly lengthy list, but we'll try to get through it quickly here. Number one, existing and proposed sanitary facilities within an adjacent site indicating pipe size, grades, invert elevations, and locations of manholes shall be shown on the site plan. Good with that?
There won't be a service connection shown to the house because there isn't one currently. We had Lake County Department of Utilities go out and dye test the house. The dye did not show in the main line, so their determination was the house was not connected to the sanitary sewer. It is not intended to be connected to the sanitary sewer. It won't need restroom facilities or water in the facility, so that won't be shown on the plan. We'll just make a note on the plan that no sanitary sewer is to the building.
Is that okay, Heather? Or?
I believe so, yes. So then, is there existing septic that's going to be removed then?
Yes, there's an existing septic tank in the rear that will be removed.
Okay. So there won't, when you're done with this project, there won't be any sanitary facilities at all for
Correct.
that house? Okay.
Correct.
You say no water either?
And no, well, there's currently water service, but it's not active. So we'll show where the existing water service line is, and we'll address what will happen to that through the course of construction.
Okay. All right. Number two, existing and proposed water facilities within and adjacent to the site, including line size locations, hydrant locations, be shown on the site plan?
Yeah, we'll show where the existing water surface is,
Okay.
and we'll note.
All right. Number three, written verification from appropriate agency that sufficient water and sanitary sewer capacity exists to accommodate the proposed development shall be provided.
Given that there will be no proposed water or sanitary service, I don't think that one applies anymore.
Right. Okay. So that kind of ties into number one.
Yes.
Widths, locations, uses, and grantees of all existing and proposed easements and utility lines shall be shown. Location of all other utilities, including but not limited to natural gas, cable TV, electric, and telephone shall be shown on the site plan.
I believe we have most of that shown now. We'll have to, I think all the cable, electric, telephone are all overhead. Those are shown on the plan. Gas would be underground. We don't know where the gas service is. We'll find that and get it on the plan.
Okay.
And we're unaware of any easements on the site.
Okay. Item number five, mismatch between architectural site plan and civil plans regarding the existing shed and whether it remains. Please clarify.
We assumed on the civil plans that the shed would be removed. Apparently it won't be, so it's back on the plan now.
Okay. Consider that clarified. Section 29.07C2 states that the minimum width for a two-way access drive is 22 feet. The proposed drive shows a width of 20 feet.
We will make that revision.
Okay, that revision is okay with you. All right. Item number 7, mismatch between architectural civil landscaping plans regarding the fence type along the northern property line, revised plans.
That's been
Okay with
addressed.
that? Okay.
Yep.
Number 8, proposed steel stair tower shows a height of 44 feet 8 inches rather than 34 feet referenced. The variance approved permits a maximum height of 35 feet. Revised plans to comply and submit tower details.
We will show the tower at 35 feet as was approved.
Okay, very good, thank you. Item number 9, fence that is required around the training tower shall be shown on the site plan and call out the type, length, height, and type of security.
Fence.
The fence right around the training. Yes, the fence is part of the structure of the stair tower, and it will be enclosed within the stair tower footprint.
Okay,
There's no, the fence will not go beyond the perimeter of the tower itself.
okay,
So it's built in within it in order to allow it not accessible
Right.
for anyone.
okay. All right, number 10, show the light pole locations on the civil site plans.
We will address that.
Okay. Number 11, a conforming location for an identification sign on the lot, whether it is a sign that's requested or not, shall be identified within the plan for front yard parking, screening wall, and landscaping to ensure that a suitable site is available for any potential sign without conflict with other approved site improvements.
At this point, we are not proposing any site. Now, the owners may wish to file for a site. And are you intending, Jeff, to provide signage for the site? Not at this time. We will forward under different applications in.
Okay. All right. Number 12, trash enclosure detail shall be provided in compliance with section 22.07B with location on site plan, or if none required, provide statement as to how any trash would be discarded.
It's not our intent to show any trash enclosure, neither that there would be need for one. The site is really prepped only for training and exercises, therefore I'm not sure there is a need for any trash.
Okay. Item number 13, stormwater management provisions in accordance with all regulatory agencies shall be provided and shall address the comments from the Lake County Stormwater Management Department as outlined below. A, provide calculated disturbance limits on plans. Disturbance exceeding 1 acre will require NOI submission in compliance with NPDE's construction general permit.
We will address that.
Okay. B, submit to the Lake County Engineer's Office for right-of-way review and permitting.
We will address that.
Okay. C, provide inverts and pipe sizes on all pipes shown on plans.
We will address that.
Okay. D, site to meet county detention requirements.
We will address that.
Okay. E, add additional swale at the north side of proposed asphalt pad area to take water west towards proposed swale that conveys water towards the Auburn ditch.
We will address that.
Okay. F, concentrated flows discharging into right-of-way ditch may require velocity dissipation practice to reduce risk of erosion, will require coordination with Lake County Engineer's Office and Lake County Stormwater Department.
We will address that.
Okay. And G, how will the proposed synthetic mulch area drain? Will it have a compacted sub-base?
We'll address that.
Okay, so you want to answer that, or?
Yeah, that area will absorb a lot of water, and any water, excess water that flows is at southeast to northwest. We're going to put a drain under the driveway so it can outlet into the swale we're creating on the north side of the driveway.
Okay. So that's how that synthetic mulch is going to drain?
Yeah, and a correction there, we have it mislabeled on the plan as synthetic mulch. It's going to be wood mulch.
Okay, so it's not going to be
It's not a
synthetic mulch.
synthetic.
Yeah, it's not a synthetic mulch.
Okay. Heather, do you have any other comments or anything you'd like to address? Good with the plan? All right. We have a staff recommendation to conditionally approve based on the staff report, comments from other departments and agencies. Is there anything else you gentlemen would like to add?
I have nothing more at this time, Andre.
I don't believe so. I think the recommendation in place is what of the report itself. So I think it's an extension to the comments that we have seen from the various departments. So we're all good with that.
Okay. Based on the staff report and the comments from the applicant, Frank, do you have any questions?
I just have one about the house. This house, I guess, wasn't lived in at one time, and now it's being used strictly for training. So
You live there?
no, I was going to say it wasn't lived in at one
I'm
time,
sorry.
right? So I assume it's probably gutted inside, so the men can just go from room to room and practice their fire techniques.
Correct. Judge Salaski would like to know on that.
How you doing? Please state your name and address.
My name is Jeff Stelkowski. We're at Auburn Career Center, 8140 Outer Road.
Thank you.
I am the Executive Director of Career Technical Education at the school district. All of you probably know we have both high school and adult education components, and this building is used primarily for our adult sector. We have fire training programs for adults, and we also retrain and recertify local fire department personnel. So not only would this be a benefit to Auburn Career Center, but it's going to be a huge benefit to the community, especially with the stair tower, because that is a part of what's called a physical agility training that all firemen have to undergo. Mm-hmm. And currently they either have to go to the far west side to receive this training, almost an hour away, or I've heard reports of that being filled and they have to go to Youngstown. So we'll be able to meet the local needs of our communities in our region right here in Concord Township. So that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
The question about the house being vacant, it is vacant. It is pretty empty. However, as part of live training for firefighters, we will start to get some donations for old sofas, beds, things like that, so that we can put a mannequin in a bed and they have to go into the house and rescue the victim. So there will be light furnishings in it to accommodate those needs, but other than that, yeah, it's pretty empty.
Okay.
There'll be a lot of simulators inside that doing wall breaches and window drops and forced door entry type of things that all the training is there for the fire classes. And
Breaking stuff and fixing stuff.
Fixing stuff and breaking it and fixing it again.
Okay. Frank, any other questions?
No, so hence that's the reason you really don't need toilet facilities or water or anything.
No, we don't.
Because no one's going to be using those facilities.
No, and if somebody really has to go, we have a house right next door that is fully equipped with sanitary and water services. It's 25-foot walk away.
Gotcha.
Okay.
This will never be set afire by any chance, would it?
No, you can't do that. There are actual burn buildings that are designed for that. They're metal structures. And after we receive permission to build this physical agility course in the backyard of that house, the only thing that Auburn Career Center will have to rely on other resources for, other institutions, is for that burn building. And we're in the works on that too, sir. So,
Gotcha, okay.
so get ready. Yeah, we have to either go to Willoughby Fire has one, and as part of it was granted, they received grant dollars to purchase this burn building, and as a requirement of the grant being awarded, they have to allow other institutions to use their burn buildings. That's primarily where we go, but we also go to Lubrizol at their burn building at times as well.
Right.
This is the only thing we have to do off-site after we get the stair tower built.
Right. Great.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Okay,
Awesome.
good.
Anything else, Frank?
No, that's it.
Okay. Hiram.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Felice.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. If I may, there are a number of comments here. I'm trying to grasp, if we're doing a site plan review approval, I'm a little bit, I find it a little bit difficult not to see all of these comments that could impact the site plan particularly detention. Doggone, I don't know where you're gonna put it or design it. So that's just one of, I'm looking at many of these. The most concerning is the fire department's concern about maneuvering the apparatus. And it says sight distance and could become a traffic or pedestrian hazard. So there's a number of glaring things that you are concerned about.
We don't expect there to be a need for a huge amount of detention. The site isn't changing that much from an impervious standpoint. The intention is to handle water quality and whatever minimal water quantity along the north side in the swale alongside the driveway. And I've talked to Steve Hauser about different ways we can manage that. So we'll be able to work that out. With respect to
Before you leave that,
Yeah.
Doug, there's a swale on the south side.
there's a swale on the south side as well, yes. The
That
site
flow is going
falls-
uninhibited.
The site falls to the northwest, so we don't want to pitch the site the opposite direction.
Got it. Understood. So there's nothing from the impervious area that's going to the south.
Correct.
Okay, so there's a swale being next to the house on the south side. That's just to take care of some existing drainage?
That takes care of, yes, the drainage to the south that
To
will
the
get
south.
captured in that swale.
Okay. So, my concern is, until it's laid out, it's not a complete site plan. That's just me. That's how I look at it. Perhaps you could address this concern from the fire department as well, the maneuverability of the truck. First of all, this is a very welcoming experience for the local community here. I've had experience with Tri-C's facility out in Parma Heights where they have a burn building and the whole thing out there. This is fascinating. Did you consider a burn building here, even though it's elsewhere?
So, yeah, the problem with the burn building is the $800,000 price tag.
Okay.
So we are actively pursuing grant
Enough said.
opportunities as well, and we actually have a burn facility off of Girdle Road,
Yep.
where our horticulture center is.
Yep.
It's set behind there.
Right.
And right now, that's the tentative plan for when we get awarded that grant. That's where we're going to put the burn building, so it stays with the other burn stuff. We have a flashover trailer back there. We have a car simulator back there, and things like that. So, but yeah, that's the only reason we have it.
Well, getting back to the fact that you're improving, we just approved another site work on your site. I see the potential for increased traffic in that locale, and now there's a concern here of maneuvering. Is there any way to alleviate or address the fire department's concern? Is that being addressed? There are questions about the traffic or pedestrian hazard?
So even with the outdoor lab, as we call it, that was approved to be on the corner of Girdle and Auburn.
Yes.
That is only existing programs are going to be using that. We're not adding any more foot traffic or car traffic as a result of that. And the same would hold true with the first responder training facility. We already are doing everything. We're already including fire departments, and our own students are using the facility as well. So there might be a slight increase in traffic. But typically those things are done on weekends. I don't know if that helps or answers your question or not. As far as I am not technically knowledgeable enough to address the fire truck.
Let me just clarify a couple of things. That the fire truck approach to the site was brought up way early on the projects during even the conditional use. We took those comments and recommendation and we're trying to implement this along with the advice of the Lake County engineer based on encroachment and the location of it and what makes sense for a fire truck to be able to go in and out of the site without really interrupting the traffic off of Auburn Road. So the reason we're going to the add cost of adding this 20-foot drive is to have the truck be able to come in on one side of the drive, the existing drive from the technical center building, going toward the house and be able to pull in and back up into the house. That whole exercise of kind of maneuvering, we thought it's allowing that. I'm not sure where is it that he's really specifically zooming in more specifically on what we have shown, but this is our approach to it.
Is it?
And I thought it does meet it. I mean, currently the size of the truck that we're currently showing on the site plan, it's the biggest fire truck that probably will be used. It's a 55-foot truck along with that, which I think that's an extreme, right? We might not go to that use of that 55-foot truck. There's a 35-foot truck and there's a 44-foot truck too.
Actually, 55 is what you should design for, so you
Well,
did
we
the right
designed
thing.
for the 55.
55. Can I ask if the driveway connection to the other parking lot, what's the intent? Is it to allow traffic?
We had the luxury to allow to have not one way but two ways in just case if the fire truck decided to go back through the driveway.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Sure.
Well, that was my questions. I just have concerns that there'll be a lot of changes, not saying it won't be done, but there are a lot of changes that we don't see, we're approving without seeing it. That's my concern. There'll be a lot of changes on the site plan, because all the comments that were gonna be addressed here.
Right.
Yeah, so,
And we went through the conditions, right?
yes.
Okay, and they addressed each condition.
Verbally.
Verbally.
I'm just saying, and when you design and draw it, and the engineer will tell you until you design and draw it,
Okay.
it's not cookie cutter. Engineering is not cookie cutters. Anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other questions? Rich? Any other questions?
Just a curiosity, what's the timing of the project?
So we would like to get it started as soon as possible. The sooner we can meet the needs of our local fire departments and have our facility be as close to state of the art for any fire training program we can. We would like to start
Right away.
right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Sure. Thank you, Rich.
Rich, do you have any other questions?
No, that's it.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. I would like to, from my standpoint, I agree with Mr. Ifelice's observations, with the driveway, and you acknowledged that, and you said that you're going to change it to the 22 feet, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So that's noted, and that was one of the issues that they had was a 20-foot driveway, was a concern, and you're going to make it to the 22. So I guess that understanding that these conditions are absolute and must be met, and you understand that, and I know you're aware of that. So if we can provide the conditional approval, then our expectations are that these items will be met, without any fanfare. Okay. Any other questions from the board at this point? Any other comments? Frank, you okay?
I'm fine.
Hiram, you okay?
Yes, sir.
Rich, you have any other comments?
I don't.
No?
Thank
You sure? You sure? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, you
Good.
good?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your presentation. We appreciate all the information you've provided, and we'll put this to a vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion from the board at this point? Ask our questions. We've addressed our issues.
Address the issues only, Mr. Chairman, that I can't, in good conscience, do something that is so lacking.
That's okay, and that is your right as a member of the zoning commission. You can voice your opinion in your vote. So and you're certainly entitled to that. So, and I appreciate that, Rich. I really do. I appreciate your input and your knowledge. Okay, so at this point in time, I will entertain a motion to the affirmative. It must be a conditional approval based on the comments in the staff report.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we conditionally approved site plan review number, I don't know, where's the number?
47.
47.
Number 47, concerning Auburn Career Center, and with all the site plan review criteria and other comments and the staff report.
Okay, have a motion made.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Heather, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Reppert?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Eiffelise?
No.
And Mr. Lingenfelter?
Yes. Okay, so let the record reflect we have 4 ayes and 1 nay for the application review and acceptance, and so the motion carries. Your application has been approved. Let's not make Mr. Eifelise's concerns reality. Okay, let's make sure we get that stuff cleaned up. All right, very good. Thank you. Thanks again, gentlemen. If you're good, you can leave. If you want to hang out, you can hang out and keep us company. It's okay. Don't mind. Come on. What could be more important than this? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. So application number 47, site plan review application is in the books. Right, now let's just make sure we get everything got squared away here. All right. Staff report. That's part of this. Okay. Now we will move on under new business to item number 1 that was on the agenda, now number 2. The public hearing for the following zoning text amendments to the section 16 of the Concord Township zoning resolution. What I would like to do is we have 11 amendments to the zoning resolution to go over this evening. We will handle this accordingly. We will cover the amendments. We will invite public comment for all 11 amendments. There is not going to be any order. You can make comments and/or recommendations based on any of the amendments. I'm assuming that anybody making comments has a copy of the agenda and understands what the amendments are, the numbers. So if you're going to address comments or concerns about the various amendments, we would like you to reference the amendment that you're speaking to. Once we have the public portion completed, we will then move to a discussion and a vote from the zoning commission on the amendments, and we will do them one at a time. Okay? So at this point in time, I'd like to open the public hearing and make it available for public comment. I would like to request anyone that is either in favor of, let's start with in favor of the 11 text amendments that identify yourself and make your comments. Anybody that's in favor? On the phone or in the room? Okay. We have no comments in favor of any of the 11 amendments in front of us. Now I would like to invite whoever has an interest in making comments that would be opposed to any of the 11 amendments. Is there anybody in the room that would like to make a comment that's opposed? No? Okay, on the phone. Okay.
I'm having a lot of difficulty hearing. May I make comment?
Yes, you can make comments if you're opposed, we can have comments to your opposition, and you can please cite which amendments you're in opposition to and your reasoning behind that.
Sure, and I'm not necessarily opposed. I have questions, or I would make a modification, but a simple yes or no probably isn't, really encompassing. And so the majority of my comments are still based on my letter that was sent to you all in July. And I know that at this point in public comment, you'd like it to be done and done with and voted on right away, but I think that the comments from July, some of them weren't completely resolved, and so I hope that you listen and really consider the comments. And so I am commenting on Amendment 5, and it is section 16.24. If you have the red line version of the document, it's 16.24, capital letter C, capital letter B. Move that out to the big one first. And that is the open space minimum requirement of 30% of the project area. I've watched a lot of this discussion, and I know that there are differing opinions on what that percentage should be, and it's difficult to come up with a formula and so forth. But I'd like to go back and just remind everybody that one of the reasons that we're redoing the RCD was because the yield plan was such an unwieldy sort of beast to get around. In most cases, it was obvious that the yield plan was not actually a plan that they could reasonably develop. But it was very hard to figure out what they could really develop, right? They showed that they were going to fill in all the wetlands and all that other kind of stuff, and then just, put blocks where the houses are. And so in most cases, the yield plan was higher than it should have been. Then they were able, in every case, to get the maximum 40% of the yield. So that then that allowed them to, with a 40%, allowed them to then get the maximum of density bonus. So when you look at now stating that detention ponds can't be in the open space, we're still looking at a huge density bonus. And Mr. Isolese stated that detention ponds can range from 5 to 10%. And so I feel that knowing that the majority of the yield plans were, and the subsequent number of pumps that were allowed to be built was extra high, that Mr. Schindler and maybe a couple of others stated that the 5% down from 40 would be a much more realistic number, and so that would be a minimum of 35% of the project area. You just really need to look at what has gone on for the last however many years this has been, and realize that, this shouldn't be a big giveaway to developers, but rather, a reasonable balance between citizens and the developers and everyone. I don't think that if we kept it at 35%, anybody would be scared off. People are doing this because the land that's left in in Concord is in fact challenged with a lot of wetlands or a lot of other problems. And so no one is going to do RCD unless they need to do it. They can get a bonus or the land is very challenged. So I really think that just taking a second look at utilizing 35%, and if you want to go back to look at some of the other developments and see what realistically they could have gotten in the yield plan versus what they presented to you, I think you show and see that 35% is the right number. Okay, that's a hard one, but that's probably the biggest one that everybody knows. And so now I would like to, I'd really like this to be interactive other way that'll happen. So we will move on to, letter C of that same section, called open space design criteria. And, again, there are some concerns with even that first sentence. It is better than it was because it keeps it up and explains it in a little bit more detail. But, says open space shall be designed and located to conserve significant natural resources. Why must they be significant? And what does significant mean? Is it size, or quality, or whatever? Like, why is that word in there? And then how should it be defined? And is there a way to make that word more detailed and flesh it out a little bit so that we all understand what that means? So that would be the one comment. To do that. And it says that with significant natural resources. So do they need to be in their natural state to be called natural resources? So for instance, if a developer has a piece of property and they fill in a 1 acre of wetland, they get the appropriate approval and they fill in an acre of wetland. Then they want to consider it, then they come and apply and they want to consider it open space. May they consider it open space? It's no longer a significant natural resource per this definition in this sentence. So I was a little thinking about the sentence and I'm not quite sure. Sometimes I just come up with the suggestion and resolution, and then that doesn't work so well. So maybe you guys can wrestle with that a little bit, because it didn't make sense to me. The other is that we have already looked at least in one case, if not more, where there is a forest tract stating to conserve the natural resources such as a forest tract. And we know that in Eagle Point, they mowed it all down, and then they still considered it open space. But this sentence kind of makes it sound like maybe they shouldn't count it open space. So, I guess what I'm thinking of is in that sentence, and what you all, I know, want to do is to say, hey, look, we want you to conserve it. We don't want you to touch it, because that's the whole reason for an RCP. Otherwise, just build it like an R1 or an R4 does it. But we want you to conserve it. So you make some pride in kind of doing that with the sentence, but there's still some things that I don't quite understand with that. So that's the second thing that I hope that you'll spend some time discussing. Because I have brought these things up before and they weren't fully discussed. So, I hope that you can provide some guidance on that. The next is still under section C, small letter E. And I have some questions, but first, can Heather explain the second sentence that however land that is disturbed during construction, can she provide me with a definition of what land is? The small letter E, second sentence, however, land that is disturbed during construction. What is the definition of the word land? And does it include open space?
Heather?
Excuse
She
me.
was asked, was
Oh,
it
did
she
you want me
was?
to,
She's
Yeah, she
aiming
was
that at you,
asking
I think.
for-
did you want me to,
Andy, I
you
had
want me
a
to try to
question.
answer
If
that,
you could
or?
define that for me, that word land.
Can you define the word land?
Ground.
Does that include open space?
Mr. Chairman, I think my interpretation of that would be that this is, adding in the words, however, land that is disturbed during construction does apply to land that was set aside as open space that might have been disturbed during construction. Yes, so it would
Yes.
include potentially land, property within the RCD, land, property, whatever your ordinary definition of land is, to be considered, you know, that could be set aside as potentially open space. Very similar to how we already have it written.
Right?
Okay, I couldn't hear another. So does land include open space?
Yes. Yes,
Yes, it does.
Great, thank you. If it didn't, then we would have been able to move on, but since it doesn't, I'll need to go through this again. So in small letter K and small letter E, it states that the land or open space, it shall be preserved and is to be preserved in its natural state. So if those are true, then in the next sentence, it says, however, it can be disturbed during construction or otherwise not preserved. So you have set up the conflict of language in this zoning text. It is an absolute conflict. You shall preserve open space in its natural resource and natural state and disturb it at the same time. You can't do both. So you need to come down one
Accidentally.
time
Yes,
or the
That's
other.
what it's for.
Or maybe you would say, I understand that during construction, there are some, disturbances, and so it could be a percent, 5% of the land could be disturbed or something, but you need to do something.
I think, Vanessa, I think you're kind of jumping to some conclusions on some of this. You're supposing things that aren't, I think that, you know, as we do these reviews and as the applicant comes to us, I think that you're making suppositions that, you know, and we're getting into the minutia of definitions of words. I think that at some point in time, you have to assume that as a zoning commission, we have the ability to dissect these kinds of issues without getting into, specific definitions on the word use in the text.
Well,
Because there are public hearings, there are design reviews, there are a number of other mechanisms in place to address these issues, and I'm sure at some point in time those can be addressed.
right, so, let's take Eagle Point as an instance where it was otherwise not preserved. The trees were not preserved while the application was going through. During the application process, and you chose to allow it to be open space. So it's not a supposition, and that's more than one. There are other examples in what we have. But furthermore, a conflict of language is a definition in legal matters and in legal circles. And so this is not some random esoteric thing. This is something that has happened in high court recently in the last 2 years. And so it really is important for you to write the text clearly so that you choose one side or the other, or you come up with some good compromise, but you don't just do it on the fly in an arbitrary and capricious manner on a case-by-case basis. That is a problem.
I would argue that we've spent the better part of a year working on this document. You could wordsmith it for 5 more years, but we put a lot of thought and effort into this as it is.
in a letter in July, but somehow you didn't address it. So.
Well, you're not writing, you know what, Vanessa, you're not writing the text, okay? Your input is welcome, and that's what it is. You don't engineer the text and write the text to your specific requirements. You're a citizen, and you're certainly welcome to provide your input. But if you really want to get into the minutia like that, then I suggest you apply for the zoning commission and get yourself appointed, and then you can sit up here and you can make those kind of decisions. That's the way I feel about it. You're trying to reverse engineer everything after the fact. It's real easy to sit back and armchair quarterback everything after the work has been done. But like Rich Peterson said, we've been working on this for over a year, okay? And quite frankly, I don't appreciate being lectured about words and the way and law and things like that from a non-legal person. So, do you have any other comments that you'd like to make with reference to this at this point? Because I'm done with the lecture part, okay? To be honest with you. That's where I'm at.
This is public comment. I have not provided any concrete solutions. I have merely pointed out a conflict of interest in your documents. I'm sorry you feel personally.
No, I'm not. It's not personal, Vanessa. If you want to get, we can take it to a personal level, but it's not personal, okay? It's a matter of professionalism, all right? That's what it is. You're given the opportunity to make your comments now. Are you in favor of this, or are you opposed to it? I think that's where we're at this point.
I am trying to provide constructive criticism and work with the board, as I have done since before when I was listening and making comments. But even in July,
And we received your email, okay, and we read it into the record. We put your comments in here. We considered everything that you said, and we made some changes according to your comments, okay? But you're not writing the text. It's not your job. That's not a part of what you do, okay? That's a part of our job. And you're not going, and you will not usurp those responsibilities from us, plain and simple.
no, yeah, that is a fact. So let's move on to, in that same sentence, it says a landscape plan prepared by an Ohio registered landscape architect. Additionally, in your zoning text in section 38, 11, and 12, you recommend material standards as well as a vegetation list. I would ask that you consider including those as well in this section, because this is, this is an important part. If you want to be conserving the land, and then it is disturbed or otherwise not preserved, then you need to put something back in it. And so, as the text of licensed architect, landscape architect is great, but you have in your text, and you believe in, specifying landscape material standards and a recommended vegetation list. And I would encourage you to include those two references and sections in there as well to make the text a bit stronger.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you agree with in this? Is there anything that we've done after a year that you are absolutely behind? Is there anything?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know what it is.
Yes, if you look at my comments are Amendment 5, Sections B and C, Amendment 6, and I had a question on 10. So if you look at in totality of my comments, you'll see that all of the other amendments, I have no comments, and I think you've done a fine job of adding text and clarifying things. So that's why I'm providing comments to make these couple of additional sections as clear and concise and enforceable as possible. So yes, there are many sections, as you can see in your text, that I haven't even commented on. So now let's move to Amendment 6. And this is definitely like the sentence by strongly desiring open space is protected with a different conservation organization other than the HOA, because that's a problem. At the very end, it says, to ensure that the designed open space is maintained and preserved in its natural state. And I wanted to know how it would be maintained and preserved. How is it going to be enforced? Going to be inspections or so forth? In the totality of the R2 text, I could find no specific required language for maintenance and preservation of the deed restrictions. So I looked through the text, and there are some in the early preliminary preliminary in the site plan. There's language that says, show us how you're gonna, maintain it and preserve it. But then in the actual deed restrictions, there's no language requiring that. And then further, there is, it's just that the attorney will look at it and approve it. So I see that as a wide gap in your intention for the RCD of making sure that it stays preserved. So I would encourage you to put in some language, either in that section or in one of the other sections, that makes sure that you have maintenance and preservation schedule or something like that. And then all the way down at amendment 10. It says, it shows the different kinds of dwellings that are allowed in an R2, in an R2 PUD. And that includes dwelling single-family cluster and dwelling attached single-family. In a regular Quail Hollow type PUD with commercial and residential, it seems that those may be equivalent. My question to you is, in an RCD, do you think it's appropriate to have a dwelling unit that includes 3 to 8 dwelling units in an attached single-family unit? And would you, for a dwelling single-family cluster, I couldn't quite find what the limit was for that number, but it seems to be, again, a really large number. So is there a reason or your thoughts to take away the high-density look for a couple of these kinds of dwelling units in an RCD, keeping them in a regular PUD? And so those are my comments.
Do you have any other comments you'd like to make at this point?
No, that'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this point, after that, we have no other people in the audience, and at this point in time, I would like to close the public comment section of this public hearing. Okay, let's take it to the board. Heather, I know you had some things you would like to discuss with regards to the letter that we received from the Lake County Planning Development.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if you'd like to read into the record the correspondence from the Planning Commission, and then I'd be happy to
Sure.
walk us,
Okay.
point out what sections, because I know
Yep.
this doesn't jive exactly with what our amendment numbers are. I can
Right.
make some notes as far as what page to turn to, so we can look at,
Okay.
see what's applicable where, so. if you want
All right, we do have a letter from the Lake County Planning and Community Development Organization dated September 29th of 2021. Attention of Ms. Heather Freeman. Dear Ms. Freeman, the Lake County Planning Commission took under consideration the above-mentioned zoning text changes at their regularly scheduled meeting on Tuesday, September 28, 2021. Lake County Planning Commission recommended that the amendments be made with the following changes. Bullet point number 1, remove the phrase "in regards to the health, safety, and welfare of the community and the citizens of the township and the surrounding communities" from the end of 16.20E, and instead add it to the end of section 16.20, general guidelines applicability. Do you want to comment on that, Heather?
Oh, okay, we can, sure, if you would like to turn to page, I don't know if it's easier to find the page number. If you look at the bottom of the page 16.16.
1626?
16.16.
Yeah, 1620.
16.
Okay, yeah, that's where I am. Okay.
This was section 16.20, general guidelines applicability. At this time, we were not proposing any changes specific to this section or any of the letters underneath there. I think that we're fine with leaving the verbiage where it's at the end of E. But should you feel that you want it in the top paragraph rather, like they were suggesting, we could look at that. But at this point, I don't really feel like it's necessary to move that phrase.
Any comments from the board on that?
All they're really asking is just to take the phrase and just reposition it somewhere in the text.
That's
Right.
Yeah.
So I
I don't know that it changes the meaning.
Right.
Any
no, it's
comments
not,
on that from the
to me,
law
I don't
department? Yeah.
I don't think it's supposed to change the meaning.
Yeah.
If I understand it correctly.
Right.
They just want us to move the verbiage
Yeah.
from one section of the test and put it to another,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
so that should not be an issue, should it? I mean, we're not changing the meaning or anything like that.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I think their intent is, that's a general statement that as a general guideline would impact A, B, C, and D, and E. In other words, we should say to the best betterment of our community, the health, safety, and welfare, as a general guideline that applies to A, B, C, D, and E, rather than it sits at E only. They're just asking to move it up. And it seems appropriate to move.
Yeah,
I agree with the suggestion.
yeah. I understand. It's fine with me.
Heather, you want to make that, can we make that adjustment?
Well, yeah, I think we could easily, the board was inclined to do that, let's see, perhaps the last sentence of 16.20, could read what's existing right there. It says, in determining whether or not to permit an RCD district within an area of Concord Township and in reviewing any plans for the development of such a district, the zoning commission and the trustees of Concord Township shall take into consideration the health, safety, and welfare of the community and the citizens in the township and the surrounding communities, and the following. And then we could continue to list A through E.
Yep. Good with that, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yes.
So we'll make that change, Heather. Let's make a note of that as a part of the process. Now, is that attached to a specific amendment?
No.
Can we assign that to an amendment or no?
No.
Not.
No.
General guideline.
Okay.
No amendment.
All right, so we'll make sure that we note in the motion that we make that, we adopt that change recommended by the Lake County Planning Commission. Squirrel that away, gentlemen. Okay. The second bullet point was to remove the phrase existing rights of ways unless extinguished at the time of development shall be excluded from the calculation of acreage proposed RCD from section 16.22A and instead phrase it as I'm gonna say that's gotta be exclusive, not exclusive, of any rights of way.
Okay. This is on, that same page.
1622.
We were proposing to add in, unless they were extinguished at the time of development. They're suggesting that they don't necessarily have to be extinguished at the time of development, and that, putting this language in would cover it. I think the plat, by recording the plat of the subdivision, somehow affects the future opening of any potential old road right-of-way, is my understanding. So I would agree that we could make that change based on the planning commission's recommendation.
Okay.
Any comments from the board?
Sure sounds like it's the same to me.
Yeah.
Do we want to say, is it exclusive or exclusive?
I don't have a dictionary.
I think it's the L is missing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm going to assume that's to mean exclusive.
So
Okay.
what's the difference between what we have and what's exclusive?
Yeah, really.
Exclusive of any right of ways or any rights of way unless extinguished at the time, well, I guess that falls, shall be excluded from the calculation of acreage of proposed RCD.
So I guess an example of a project, like Eagle Point had an old 40-foot right-of-way that ran through the middle of the lot. So it was never opened up, never officially dedicated for any purpose, and it's still technically there. So even when they file the subdivision plat, that's going to be happening later this month, more than likely, it'll still be on there, but it's not ever going to be open for any kind of use. They're not going, because the new development kind of supersedes that. And
I don't know if there's any difference.
but the way we had it written is that we would have wanted to see that somehow officially extinguished, like by some kind of separate instrument or on the plat. But what planning is telling us is basically that's not necessary. I don't know. So. I'm not sure what the harm would be by leaving it in the way we have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it as a critical change.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. Any comments from the board on that?
Keep it the way it is.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree.
Okay. The next bullet point is density was removed in section 16.4 and is no longer regulated. Create a density standard for the district. I'm not really quite sure on that one. I thought we addressed that.
Right, so as you know, one of the biggest changes we've made was eliminating the yield plan and just asking the developer to come in with a super awesome RCD plan that sets aside 30% of open space, pristine, undisturbed open space. And our thought process all along was that, okay, based on our minimum lot sizes, that kind of regulates what that density could be with what's left over for the development. I did have a conversation with Mr. Radacci about that recommendation, and there was potentially some concern that somebody might come in with a project with like a bunch of irregular shaped lots, flag lots, things like that, in order to just try to create maximum density without really taking a lot of thought into how it's laid out and just looking at straight the number of units. So what planning was suggesting is that we include in some density, maximum density, whether it be like on a gross acreage basis or maybe some net calculation. So for example, like in our PUD, the first half of this section, we have no more than 3 units per acre, gross calculation. I've looked at a couple other communities, like Painesville Township has like has a PUD that's not a conservation type PUD, it's a kind of other kind of PUD, and they have minimum lot sizes, but then they also have a maximum overall density allowed for the developments as well. Some other communities also had that. I know that City of Mentor, I don't believe they still have it on their books, but they used to have what was popular over in Mentor was the RVG. It's like a village green type of development where they had to set aside a minimum 15% open space, and then they also had a max density based on gross acres of like 2.5 units per acre. But the difference there was they didn't have minimum lot sizes. Now with us, we do have a minimum lot size that does help regulate that density. So it's up to you guys if you feel like we also then need to add on this maximum density, or if you feel good about what we have in there now.
Won't we get a density calculation from the developer? We should get that as part of his plan.
Figure it out.
Well, they would have to provide a breakdown, right, of, you know, how much land is set aside for open space, how much is in the sublots, and how many lots. Right, and then we could just run that based on the number of units they're proposing, divided by the total project area. I mean, we would calculate it, just, I guess, in our minds, you know, well, what is it, but what's the point of running that density calculation if there's no standard to make sure it complies with? I'm not sure.
Well, I would just assume that as part of his presentation, we would say, we would be given, here are the number of lots, here's the traffic, here's the people, and here's the density per acre, or per lot, or whatever. I would assume that that would be part of the presentation developed by the developer.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, let me flip back to that first section that indicates what they have to present to us with the preliminary, township preliminary plan. The density proposed for the entire development. Yeah, that is one figure that they have to provide to us, correct. If you look in 16.12E, under the township preliminary plan, one of the requirements is to provide the density of the proposed for the entire development.
Okay. So, should we have a density standard in Concord Township? Is there one now? Obviously not.
Well, the density now is based on that yield plan that we can never prove whether or not it's valid or not, which was why we were trying to eliminate that grayness.
That's right.
Yeah, so like in a regular R1, we don't say, you know, the maximum density in an R1 development is X number of units. We regulate it based on minimum lot size, really. And so I know, like, when the original RCD text was formulated, they looked at traditional R1 and R4 developments to figure out, you know, what density did they actually develop at? Did they get their full potential, their full, you know, because the minimum lot size in an R1 is just over a half acre, so 22,000 square feet, or just under 2 units per acre. So were there ever any subdivisions that are 40 acres and they got 80 lots? No, because you have to subtract out for roads and detention and right of way and all that. So other districts do not have a specified maximum density. It's regulated based on other factors such as lot sizes and setbacks of things of that nature that help regulate density.
So I take it we don't need a max density. We've got other factors going into the design of an RCD. Now, part of that is gonna give us a density, but whether it's 1.25 or 1.62, it's a moot point. We don't have a max density requirement. And I don't know if we need one.
That would mean that each development that we sit in on, they would have to basically show us what they're saving, and that could vary from project to project.
What do you mean, what they're saving?
Well, they come in, they want conservation development, we always consider it, because their primary function is to save as much as the land in its natural state. So every developer is going to come in, depending on the land that he's purchasing to develop, it's going to have its own uniqueness about it.
Right.
So every developer would have to let him submit his criteria for conservation development, and we would have to be more or less like a judge to think whether he's really saving it as much land as possible or he's not. That would have to be a judgment call on us, right?
Yeah, that's why I don't think we need a max density requirement.
Never had one.
We'd address that at the application time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let them do their thing and we say it and see what it is on its merits.
Yeah.
Because then we can, like the last one we just voted on, this big project on Hoos. He came in, he gave us his proposal for RCD. But he also made us a proposal on what it could be developed in its natural R1. Right then you could see what it was, and we can get a number from that and see if it's really a beneficial project, to grant him that or not grant him that. Right? I think that's the only way we can realistically do it,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
And I think that's what we're doing in getting rid of the yield
Absolutely.
plan. That's what it's called, yield plan.
Right.
I think that's what we're doing. We're saying, give us a preliminary plan. Give us all the numbers you've got from the lot size and the people and the traffic and easements and everything like that. And here's what I've got. And we're forgetting about the yield plan completely. I think that's so, I don't think we need a max density.
I agree.
So ignore that comment.
All right, next item is define what a wildlife corridor is. I knew that was gonna open up a can of worms. I knew it.
Okay. that
Animal
was-
Crossing.
That was part of amendment number 5.
Yep, it's on page 1618.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Big letter C, small letter A.
Oh, okay, yes. If you remember, this language we were adding in here was suggested by Soil and Water. I don't know if we can just defer to the ordinary meaning of what a wildlife corridor is, or if it's necessary to come up with our own definition. I forgot I had brought a definition but
I remember talking about
We vetted this, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
It's a wildlife corridor. It's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know that we're not.
I think we deferred to Webster on that,
Webster's
Yeah.
the source.
or Wiki.
We do have we do
One of
have
the
our
others,
definitions.
it was one of the other.
In our section 5 under definitions, we do indicate that if a term is undefined, it refers to the
Right.
ordinary English meaning, and I think that's acceptable in this. And then again, it would be up to the applicant to, if they were going to save something like that, to explain to you what it is and why it's worthy of saving. You know, that would.
Yep.
So.
again, on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Okay.
Dave's working too hard.
Yes. Last bullet point is to allow stormwater infrastructure in the open space areas, but do not permit it count toward, but boy, these guys need to go back to English 101. Allow stormwater infrastructure in the open space areas, but do not permit it
To be
to
counted.
be
To count.
counted
Yep.
towards open space area calculations.
Right. That's on the next page that we are just flipping from. The way we worded it currently, it's under that section where we're subtracting out things that aren't considered open space, but might be allowed within the open space, so,
Not contribute.
which we may need to make a small correction to this, the way we have it currently written is stormwater infrastructure shall not be located in the open space and does not contribute to the minimum open space requirements.
Which is,
I know there was some concern from the county about putting stormwater basins on individual sublots with the potential of future owners somehow negatively impacting those features, I guess, or making it difficult to access them when maintenance is done, due to people putting up fences and things like that really shouldn't be in certain locations. So I believe that was their thought process on that. From an enforcement standpoint, from the township, I can tell you it might be a little bit more challenging, because if they're like, okay, we have 30% open space and 2% are detention basins, what the basins get bigger then, and then the calculation changes, or I'm a little concerned about that, having to know exactly how much area is in the detention basin and making sure that then we're subtracting it out from the open space. It's just kind of my thoughts on that, so I'm open to what you guys feel like.
So the stormwater infrastructure is an entity all by itself, really. So what we're saying here is we don't want it as part of the open space calculation. But we also don't want it to be in any sublot. Right?
We didn't say that.
We didn't say that.
No, we didn't say that.
So it can be part of a sublot?
If I may, so here's another one. I respect the county's planning commission, but this comment, so if stormwater infrastructure is not located in open space, okay, but then, well, let's allow it to be in open space, but don't count it as open space, well, then it's not in open space
Right.
in the first place. I know I meant it. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Then it's
yeah.
not open space.
Couldn't they just call it
Stormwater, regardless of where it is located, is not open space.
It's an entity all by itself.
All by itself. So
All by
if the
itself.
developer puts in a stormwater basin, okay, or basins, that's not open space.
No.
And it's not counted towards open space.
No.
So ergo, it's the same, what we're saying, it's the same thing. We're not, so that's how
I
I
agree.
read it.
I agree.
No?
It can be
No,
located.
I agree, but do you have any experience with then, if they were going to not put the basin on a sublot, could they plat that as like a block and just not call it open space? Or maybe that's a question I have to follow up with the county on. Like from the subdivision review, if it's not on a lot and they're not calling it open space, then what is it? A block? That's not,
It's a stormwater
or do we
It's
care about that?
It's a stormwater
It's
basin.
not open space.
Don't touch.
Okay.
Do not pass go. Do not collect 200.
It doesn't, it's not in open space and doesn't count towards open space.
Right.
That's
It's
something that we'll
it's a
figure it out.
non-development area of the subdivision,
Yeah,
because you can't develop it.
yeah.
It's a non-developable area in the subdivision. Clear.
Right.
You're not gonna build something on a pond. A house, you can't put it on, stands to reason.
So I'd ignore that comment also.
Yes.
Okay.
But it was discussed.
Yep.
Totally.
We are available to help with any aspect of this recommendation. If you have any questions, please feel free to call Dave Radishy, Director, or Joseph Rose, planner 1.
1 out of 5.
One out of 5.
Yes.
We're going to consider. Okay. So that is the Lake County Planning and Community Development's input, and their letter is obviously being entered into the record as such. Any further discussions on any of the amendments that are in front of us this evening, gentlemen? Frank?
Well, based on what we've discussed on this, and there still seems, correct me if I'm wrong, some misunderstanding of interpretation of what we got from the Planning Commission, for example, and of course what we got from Vanessa. Should we maybe spend some time and maybe still look at this a little bit longer and just maybe recess this? Or do we feel we've done as much as we can right now and just move along with it?
I would
Make
think
another
that would be endless. You know, I really do. I think you could work on this document for years and wordsmith it and not come up with much different than what we have. We put a lot of effort into this,
I understand.
and I think we need to move forward, my opinion.
Okay, I just wanted to throw it out there for discussion. I know we've put a lot of work in this, and we made a heck of a lot of changes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if we had 1,000 people out there, we get 1,000 different things that would they'd want to see incorporated, or change this verbiage to this verbiage, because I can't understand what you're trying to say. You know, and you're right. We could probably do this forever.
Well, I think the attendance is indicative of the interest.
Well, that's true too, because
I mean, it's pretty
I want to point
straightforward.
it
There's
out.
nobody here.
Right.
Okay, if there were any hot button issues that we were dealing with here, there would be people in the seats.
That's
and
true
there aren't.
too. Yes.
So I take that as a tacit endorsement of the public as to the work we've done. Because if there were egregious errors that we made, there would be a lot of people sitting out there right now wanting to tell us what we're doing wrong.
Good
And there
point.
isn't. So
And in reality, we've got a much better document now than what we had before.
I think we've made some very meaningful progress on this.
Heather, have you gotten any positive feedback from any contractors or developers?
Well, if you recall, Mr. George Davis with ProBuilt had sent some initial feedback.
Yeah.
And then since then, he did receive, I think, one of the latest versions of the text, and commented that he was pleased that a lot of the things that he was initially concerned about, the board decided not to move forward with it. If you recall, some of that was specific to potential like road design, roundabouts. I don't remember exactly everything off the top of my head. Last thing I heard from Mr. Davis, that he was cautious about this version of the text. He thought that it still might have been potentially not incentive enough for a developer to choose the RCD to move forward, but he was going to have his engineer run some numbers or some plans and just make that decision. I kind of thought he might be here tonight, honestly, in opposition, but the developers knew that you guys were meeting tonight, so none of them chose to come and speak at this point. So he's the only one I've really spoken to about it specifically. So
Hiram, any comments?
No, I am good to go.
Mr. Iafalise?
Mr. Chairman, I'm saying, reflecting back on when we initiated the whole discussion, obviously we all shared concerns about the completeness of yield plans, and my first experience with the board, my colleagues here with that first one was not good. I think this is leaps and bounds, and I've digested, I've heard, I've read through the letter from the public, I listened to the public, listened to the comments, and what we have here in principle, I believe, is sound and reasonable for us to move forward. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson?
No further comments, Mr. Chairman.
I think that we always try to improve as we move forward with these things. I think we deliberated and debated and had some very spirited discussions on the percentages of open space. We went back and forth and back and forth. Does anybody want to address that further? I mean, do you think we should reconsider what we've come up with, or are you comfortable where we are with those numbers?
You're looking at me?
No.
Okay.
I'm comfortable.
I can look.
Too
Are we comfortable with those numbers?
Comfortable,
All
Richard.
right. Not singling you out, Howard, in any stretch.
We have, in my opinion, we have a minimum 30%.
Right. And I think that you know it's always a fine line that you walk as a body when we're coming up with these regulations and resolutions as to incent or disincent the builders to do what we want. And I think if we become so onerous on these requirements and so demanding on these requirements that nobody wants to use it, it is meaningless.
Right.
Okay, it's meaningless. So I think in order to get the desired result, we've given ourselves a tool that I think is very important in helping the process and giving us input, because everybody knows if it's R1, they don't have to come to us and ask for a conservation zoning. They can just go ahead and plat it out as an R1 and start digging tomorrow. They don't have to put themselves through this process.
Right.
Okay, they don't. And the same thing with an R4. They don't have to do it. So I think that the project that we've put together and the resolution and the additions that we've made we've made significant strides in making it a good, meaningful piece of legislation for this community. And I think everything we do always has the best interest of both the community and the developers, because if we exclude them, they're not going to use it. That's the bottom line. They're going to look at this and go, this is silly. I'm not going to put myself into that process. I'm not going to spend that kind of extra money. I'm not going to invest those additional dollars to comply with something that just isn't even reasonable. So I think that, you know, and it's difficult. It is. And I've been on this zoning commission long enough to remember when we implemented the first conservation zoning text, and it was, you know, we put it together and it was a long process, and here we are how many years later, we're still tweaking and making adjustments, which I think speaks well to what we're doing here. I mean, because the fact we can recognize where there's deficiencies and we try to make adjustments and we make recommendations to fix those. And sometimes you cannot plan for every possible contingency out there. You just can't. So we're going to get applications. It's going to come in front of us, and things are going to happen. And afterwards, we're going to look at it and go, "Oh boy, we kind of missed that one." Because there's always going to be somebody that's going to try to game the system. That's just the way it is. That's reality. And so, but the good news is because of the work that we do, we have the ability to make an adjustment and see what and learn from our mistakes and address them and make sure that we don't make them again. And I think that's what's important, is that when we make mistakes, we recognize it and we put ourselves in a position where we don't make the same mistake over again. And I don't think we've done that at all. I think we've always managed to come up with ideas and creative ways to address the developers' concerns and address citizens' concerns and strike a balance. And that's what we've done. And I think that's where we're at with this. I think we've done a good job. I think that we've had some good deliberations. We've put a year into this, and not to say that means anything as far as the quality of the work, but I mean, it means that we've taken this seriously. We didn't slap this together in a month and threw it out there for public hearing. I think we should move forward with what we've got. That's my opinion. So at this point in time, what we'll do is I would be comfortable closing the public hearing at this point. The public comments have been made. The board has deliberated. We've taken into consideration the Lake County Planning and Community Development comments. And I would like to close this public hearing at this point. And I would like to proceed with the considering each amendment. And the way that this will work moving forward is we will look at it. We will just go right down the list, Amendment 1 through 11. I will entertain a motion in the affirmative, and then we will consider the Lake County Planning Commission's one comment that we decided we wanted to incorporate, even though it's not associated with any amendment in front of us. We will make a motion in the affirmative. I will take a second, and then we will do a roll call vote from Heather for each amendment, and we'll just work right down the list. Okay. Counselor, does that sound like the right process here? Okay.
Absolutely, Chairman.
Thank you. All right, so.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, before we start. I don't know if Abby would be able to address how we would accommodate for the change that we'd like to make for 16.20.
And that was from the first
Yeah,
comment.
the very
from
first
Planning
bullet point
Commission.
on the Lake County Planning and Community Development's recommendation.
We would just treat that as amendment number 12, and we would vote to adopt the recommendation by the Planning Commission and moving that language up further in the section.
Okay, so we'll make that as amendment number 12 then? Okay. Understand, gentlemen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we have work to do.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve amendment number 1, section 1612D, adding streams and wetlands to be shown on the existing conditions map.
I have a motion made.
Chairman, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes?
Mr. Eiffelise,
Yes.
and Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Okay, let the record reflect we have 5 yeas and 0 nays, no abstentions for amendment number 1.
Mr. Chairman, if I so may move for amendment number 2, section 16.19, revises purpose statement for residential conservation development district.
Motion made.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, please call the roll.
Mr. Eiffelise,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes?
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Okay, let the record reflect that is 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions. Amendment for amendment number 2. Amendment number 3.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve amendment number 3, section 16.22, revise minimum project area to exclude existing right-of-ways unless extinguished at the time of the development.
Motion made.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, call the roll.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes?
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Eiffelise,
Yes.
and Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Let the record reflect that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for amendment number 3. Amendment number 4.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve amendment number 4, section 16.23, sub-items B as in Bravo, 7, entitled decks, revised to include riparian setbacks.
Motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded. Heather, call the roll.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Eiffelise,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes?
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Let the record reflect that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for amendment number 4. Amendment number 5.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve amendment number 5, section 16.24, subheadings A, B, C, and D, permitted density and open space requirements, revised to eliminate the base density and yield plan requirements for an RCD district, includes new definition of open space, establishes new minimum open space requirements for an RCD, revises open space design criteria, revises the areas not counted as open space to also include utility easements and stormwater infrastructure, revises the process for restoring any disturbances within the open space, adds language to allow open space to abut the road right-of-way.
Motion made.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, please call the roll.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Eiffelise,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes?
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Let the record reflect that is 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for amendment number 5. Amendment number 6.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve amendment number 6, section 16.24E, ownership and maintenance of open space, revised to add strong desire for the open space to be protected with a conservation easement.
We have a motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, call the roll, please.
Mr. Ifelis,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Okay, let the record reflect that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for amendment number 6. Amendment number 7.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve amendment number 7, section 16.25, letter D, development and site planning standards revised to allow front building setbacks to vary and adds provision for a minimum 40-foot front yard setback under certain circumstances.
You have a motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Heather, call the roll, please.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Ifelis,
Yes.
and Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Let the record reflect that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for amendment number 7. Amendment number 8.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve amendment number 8, section 16.25, subheading E, adds new perimeter building setback regulations.
Motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, call the roll, please.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Ifelis,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Let the record reflect that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for amendment number 8. Amendment number 9.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve amendment number 9, section 16.26, street, drive, and walkway requirements, adds provisions for landscape cul-de-sacs and desire for right-of-ways to be curved when possible.
Motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, call the roll, please.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Ifelis,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Let the record reflect that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions on amendment number 9. Amendment number 10.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve amendment number 10, section 16.27, dwelling unit requirements. Adds requirements that dwellings should be oriented to appreciate the topography and natural features of the land.
You have a motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Heather, please call the roll.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Ifelis,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Let the record reflect that that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for amendment number 10. Amendment number 11.
Don't all jump in there at once.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve amendment number 11, section 16.28, pre-application conference and township sketch plan required, revised to add stormwater management department and soil and water conservation district to attend pre-application meetings, deletes yield plan requirements, and adds specific items that shall be shown on the sketch plan.
We have a motion made.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion made and seconded. Heather, please call the roll.
Mr. Ifelis,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Schindler,
Yes.
Mr. Ruppert,
Yes.
Mr. Lingenfelter.
Yes. Okay, and now we'll address amendment number 12. And this will be to incorporate the first bullet point. And I would like a reference made to that bullet point in the letter from the Lake County Planning Commission.
Mr. Chairman, take a stab at this.
Please do.
would ma-
You'll do fine.
Make a motion approving amendment number 12, accepting the recommendations from the Lake County Planning Commission in their letter dated September 29th, 2021, addressed to Heather Freeman. The first bullet point, specifically in 16.20E, a deletion of the words "the health, safety, and welfare of the community and the citizens in the township and the surrounding communities" from 16.20E, and inserting the language under general guidelines and applicability of 16.20.
Mr. Chairman, I will
Bravo.
second that motion.
Bravo.
Good
Well
job.
done. That's covered it, Counselor? Okay,
Beautiful.
good.
Couldn't have put it better
We
myself.
have a motion made and seconded. Heather, please call the roll.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Reppert?
Yes.
Mr. Ifelis?
Yes.
And Mr. Lingenfelter?
Yes. Okay, let the record reflect that was 5 yeas, no nays, no abstentions for the added amendment number 12 in reference to the Lake County Planning and Community Development. That concludes the votes for the amendments for our public hearing for the text amendments to section 16 of the Concord Township zoning resolution. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your hard work. Okay. Now we'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the approval of minutes for the September 7th, 2021 Zoning Commission meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the September 7th, 2021 Zoning Commission meeting as written.
I have a comment.
I see a yellow highlighter,
Yep.
so I see something that is in conflict.
On page 4, or well, page 11, we have here Chairman Lingenfelter, Ms. Miller, Vice Chair Lingenfelter. I don't know if that should be Vice Chair Ifelis, or if
That's
it
true.
should be Chairman Lingenfelter.
I can't be both? Is that what you're telling me, Howard?
We'll clone you and
That's
you
it.
can be anybody you want.
Yes, that is an error.
Should it be you or Rich? Can you remember?
I'm sorry, Hiram, I can't locate you.
Yeah, it's right here, page 11.
I missed it.
Yeah, they're referencing right here.
Way down in
Line
there.
20, yeah. No, well, it's page 11 on the, there's 4
Oh.
on the
I
transcript.
meant page.
Yeah. So page 11,
Yeah.
right there, they refer to me as. vice
Line
chair.
item number 22.
Line item 22.
Oh, yeah, that's you.
Yeah, that's me. I'm questioning. So we'll make that change.
Okay.
Can I
We'll
read?
recognize that. So please restate your.
Yeah.
Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the meeting minutes from September 7th, 2021 with one correction as noted.
Okay, have a motion made.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Any other yellow highlighter there, Hiram?
No, sir.
Good to go. Okay, just making sure, because that's good. I'm glad that somebody actually reads this stuff. So I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record reflect that there were all ayes, no nays, no abstentions. Motion carries. Minutes are approved as submitted with the one caveat that was mentioned. Okay. Correspondence report by zoning commission members, item number 4 on the agenda. Frank.
None, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Hiram.
None, Mr. Chairman.
Richard Ifelis.
No communications.
Richard Peterson.
I happen to have a correspondence. Recently, I ran into a friend of mine who happens to live in Concord, and he knew that I was on the zoning commission. He was complaining about something, and he said, what I'll do is I'll document it and email it to you. So he sent me an email of concern here. I think, Heather, you probably know about this. Do you want me to read the email?
Please.
Okay, this subject of this email is vacant home and development from Mr. Tom Schick, who happens to be the Homeowners Association President in Kellogg Park Estates. And it's dated September 20th of 2021. Said I'm following up on our recent conversation regarding the home of a Mr. Cloyd Peters, located at 6280 Beers Drive in Concord Township. This home has been unoccupied for approximately the last 10 years. I visited the township zoning office on 2 occasions regarding this property. The exterior of the home is not maintained and is in disrepair. The split rail fence and lamppost have fallen over or laying on the ground. There are dead trees both standing and fallen over in the backyard. The north side of the house is covered with mold. Trees and landscaping around the house are overgrown and falling over. I've attached pictures, and he attached a whole series of photographs here. I've attached pictures taken on September 18th of both the outside and the inside of this unoccupied home. The homeowners on Beers Drive in the Kellogg Park Estate development have expressed to me their concern regarding our property values and the health and safety of our neighborhood. As the president of the Homeowners Association, I'd like to be able to inform the homeowners of our development that this unoccupied property will be addressed. And he goes on to say Mr. Peters and his wife Susan own another home located at 8137 Lakeshore Boulevard in Menor. Thanks for any assistance you may be able to provide. And I happened to drive over there to see it in person because I wanted to see if it was bad. It's bad. The split rail fence lays there, the grass is uncut, trees, the vegetation's all overgrown, and it sits right in a nice neighborhood. So that was
Was that a foreclosure? Or
no, they still own the home. It's got furniture in it, but they haven't been there in 10 years and they live somewhere else. And they just let it go. I guess occasionally somebody cuts the grass, but other than that, they just let it go. So.
Isn't this something that the health department could get involved with?
I don't know. All I know is I got the email.
Yeah.
But it is bad. If you go over there on that street, you know where Kellogg Park is, go back in on Beers, it's on the left, and surprisingly a house across the street just sold. And I can't imagine what the new neighbor's gonna think looking across at that.
What's our ability to do anything about that? I mean, if it's owned, somebody owns it. It's not like it's foreclosed or an abandoned piece of property. I mean, what is our recourse in something like that? Is there anything we can really do?
Well, from a zoning perspective, the issues that were brought up in the email, well, first of all, I am familiar with the property. I do know, sure, if you want to forward that to me, you can. We've received complaints about this property in the past, and way prior to me being with Concord Township, but as far as the specific concerns brought up in this email, the only thing that we can currently regulate under the zoning resolution would be the fence maintenance. We've had sent letters to both addresses, the one on Lakeshore and the one on Bears Drive. We've never gotten a response. Marty and I have never gotten any kind of reply from the owners. And as far as trying to address more property maintenance type standards, the condition of the home and the dead trees and things like that, that would take additional legislation by the Board of Trustees if they wanted to pursue that under our limited home rule authority. As of right now, we don't have anything in motion to do that. I know there's been some discussion with the administrator about potentially in the future looking at that for Concord Township, but right now we don't have anything on the books that would address those issues.
That could happen to any of us.
Yeah, I know. Excuse me. Don't we have in our regulations right now what we call obnoxious weeds and stuff, where the township goes in, we clean it up and cut the grass, whatever, and then charge them for it, or put a lien on the house or something?
The Ohio Revised Code does give the trustees the authority to do some kind of nuisance abatement.
Right.
They've not exercised that authority in the years that I've been with the township, or immediately prior to me joining that, but there is a process that they could go through to do that.
Right.
But you know, the dead trees, that kind of stuff, I don't know that would fall under that. Plus you have, there's risk on expending township funds on projects like that where you might not get paid back. So there's trade-offs on doing things like that. But I don't think we have any tools in our toolbox currently to address the immediate concerns about just the condition of the house.
Even the mailbox is laying
I know,
in the yard.
yeah, I mean,
The whole post just rotted off and just laying there. And,
I definitely can revisit this. I don't know that we've sent any letters this year or the year before. So I think it's still kind of one of those open cases where we've been monitoring. But at this point, since we've gotten no response, I believe, you know, we have to talk with the trustees and whether or not they would want to pursue something, you know, from a zoning violation standpoint further.
Is there anything that, as the zoning commission, is there anything that we can do in reference to that?
That's what I was thinking, you know, as far as what we have in our, what we could write into the resolution.
Could we craft some sort of an amendment or some sort of I mean, where would that fit? Would that something that would be addressed in each zoning area, like under R1, under R4, or could it be something that would just be a catch-all?
Well, I've seen some townships that have some very limited property maintenance type regulations in their zoning resolution. That'd be something we'd have to talk to legal counsel about, whether or not we had the authority to put that in our standard zoning resolution, or if that would have to be a separate limited home rule resolution passed by the trustees.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I know we're limited is because of being a township and all.
Yeah.
I know we have limitations to what we can and can't do.
But you could
And we have to
specify
defer
between.
to the ORC.
Yeah.
But in this case, like Rich said, I mean, you got these people are being directly affected by this. It doesn't seem fair, and it's because it's an legitimately owned piece of property. You know, I mean, there's got to be some redress for these people that are having to deal with this. You know, there's got to be some method. You know, they could deal with this.
some of the photos were shot like through the windows, and you could see there's a vacuum cleaner in there, and there were boxes. Looked like people were starting to pack things up, but I don't know who could afford to have that property like that and not do something with it.
Right.
Well, out of what Frank said, the health department, in my experience, has the authority to condemn a home, depending on its condition. But I don't know the rules as it applies.
Yeah. And I mean, if they even condemn it, so what does that mean?
It makes available funds to the public authority, I believe, to demolish it, you know, through with funding, I believe.
Could we make a resolution here to go to the trustees to have them consider further action?
Abby? I don't know.
As far as what?
Consider further action with the resolution of this property.
No, what this board needs to be more. We can't target that one property specifically. We'd have to address, you know, the issues with that property, like the mold or whatever else. We couldn't just that.
So it'd have to be a generic.
Yeah.
You
just
couldn't
those
specifically
concerns.
target a specific piece of property. Then you would
Sure.
have to say, just in general, if a property falls into this kind of disrepair,
Right.
regardless of location.
But then we run into our home rule authority issue, so that's worth
Right.
Looking into further. So I can have an answer for you for the next meeting.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if there's anything we can do about that.
Sure.
I know it puts the homeowners and the neighbors in an awkward situation.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and if there, and it puts us in an awkward situation, and there really isn't much we can do about it. I mean, you know, we're limited as a body and as a township as to what we can do. So, I mean, it kind of makes it a very convoluted process. It's kind of a shame that kind of stuff goes on, but it does. I know after 2008, there was a lot of repossessions and you know, foreclosures, and there was a lot of properties that went, I don't know if you remember back at that time, but there was a lot of properties that went into pretty bad disrepair, and I don't know what we can do about it. You know, bank-owned properties, I mean, what could they, you know, you could go after the bank and tell them they got to get out there and maintain the property, but, you know, it makes it very difficult, so. But that's a shame, and we appreciate that input, Rich, and, you know, hopefully we can come up with some idea, we can do something with this and maybe do something meaningful. All right, so that covers the correspondence report by the zoning commission members. The last item is audience participation. I don't see a green light on the phone any longer, so I'm assuming there's nobody on the phone at this point. And there is nobody else in the audience. So I will basically consider the audience participation discussed. And the next zoning meeting will be November. Wow, November, guys. We're getting down to the short strokes here. November 2nd of 2021. Anything anybody would like to see added to the agenda for the next go-around?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to see anything added, but I just want to make a comment.
Yes.
You know, like we all know, we've worked on this RCD for a long, long time. And one thing I'd like to say as far as encouraging, over the years, we've had more developers come in asking for this a lot, which means we're doing something right,
Good.
the way I look at it. Compliment you all, gentlemen. Thank you for your hard work.
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate the comments. Okay, with that, the meeting is adjourned.